Okay, so I'm not going to, obviously, these are all compartment space and all that. I'm not going to go over stuff that you already know, okay? Obviously, you pull those out to get the ladders off. The key thing I want to tell you about this truck is that just make sure when you put these ladders back on, might want to get in the habit of putting something right here to where actually that way when you put them on, because sometimes if you get like the 16-foot ladders, one off a little bit, it will mess up with it. So I might take a picture of that, whatever, and that way you know what hole it goes in, because when you're trying to throw the 35-foot ladder on, it weighs some amount of weight. So I want to get in this compartment right here. Can I just pull this off? Okay. Thank you. All right. So so on this truck right here, which when you run the generator, if you blow the outlet or you have a line or a cord coming off that, and it basically will short out. You have a breaker in here, and all these are on the breaker. Everything on the right side when they designed this truck is pretty much on the right side. Everything on the left side is for the left side or driver's side. And actually there's a main breaker right here. All right, so if you blow the breaker, it says main, and everything's labeled in there as well. So if you lose any of your accessories for electricity, all right, this is where you go. And there's also another breaker as well that's on the other side of the truck, and I'll explain that as well where it's at. But any questions on this? Pretty self-explanatory, okay? The brow light is also right here. It shows on here too, if I remember correctly. All right. Because the brow light, when you turn the generator on, will automatically come on. There's no switch for it. So, all right. Moving up here. This is for your this tank is for your breathing air in the bucket. All right. I know it's on 0 right now. Basically, to fill it, you take this cap off, and then basically you put your CGS fitting on it, whatever, and then you fill it up with that. You have to open this valve here and open this valve right here up, okay? So, and then when you actually want to get air up there, if you're not getting enough air, if you notice on the back side, there's a cutout right here. This regulator is to increase the air supply up there or decrease the air supply if they need more air up there, okay? So this one here is just basically for a fill valve. That's all it is. And I want to say it's 6,000 PSI. So you probably have at least 30 minutes of air, 2 people breathing. It's not like you'll be doing hard work, but you actually might have more than that. Back here, for the hydraulics for the bucket, there's really no sight glass. What they have is a dipstick. And basically this dipstick, you see a gauge right here. On the back side of the gauge is where the dipstick is. It's only this long, and I had problems getting it out yesterday because I have big fingers. When you check it, the question got brought up yesterday. When you check it, you got to have the ladder in the air or the ladder bed. It needs to be bed. That way, all the fluid has been pushed out of the cylinders, and it's back into the reservoir here. All right, come on. If I can get it out, I'll show you what it looks like. But it's only about 6 inches, 7 inches long. All right, so there it is. All right. And if you look real closely right here, there's some dots on it. This is where it needs to be, the fluid level needs to be around these dots, okay?
Like in the middle?
Yeah, you can go to the top dot, but your operating pressure, it's good right there. What you don't want to do, as Chief Jenkins has mentioned, is you don't want to overfill this, because this is basically ATF fluid or transmission fluid. That's why there's usually a cold position and hot position on your cars. Right, so when you actually start running this thing, that fluid is going to expand and increase in volume. So you never want to basically overfill that. You could damage your seals, and all right. And for the most part, as long as you do not, this fluid level should stay the same. If it starts decreasing, what do you think's going on? You got a leak somewhere, okay? And when you're operating this thing, if you want to watch, you actually can see this pressure gauge fluctuate when you, if someone else is operating, you can make sure it's working and all that. Like the other day, or this week, I was watching it, you could see when they were extending, it'd go up, and they let off, and it'd go back down. And it seems like it's a fine thread, and it takes forever to screw back in. You know, engineers put things in the greatest spot all the time. All right, I'm gonna come back to that since we're recording. All right, any questions? Like I said, that's for your fluid level for the ladder. Your air supply goes up to the bucket. All right, so as we move up forward here, you have a cord reel back here, okay? One of the things with these cord reels, when you pull them out, this here might get caught sometimes. You just gotta be leery of that. You might wanna pull this off or have someone right here. To rewind the cord, here's your cord reel rewind button. You just push that in. I strongly recommend that at least when someone here holds it and basically keep tension on it. If you don't, it gets in there and it starts flopping. I've experienced that with someone didn't do it. They just hit the button, and basically we had to pull all 200 feet, I think it's 175 to 200 feet of cord off, and then to put it back on. It's a very challenging time. All right, in this compartment, there's also a sight glass right here. Now this is for your generator that supplies your electrical power. All right, as you can tell, the sight glass, when I ran this truck, it's actually, if you look at it real closely, I can't see it no more, but actually it's a temperature gauge is what it is, so it goes up and down. But you want this at 3/4 full or the halfway full mark. Never want it full, because you got to have that room to expand it, okay? Once again, if it starts getting down here, whatever, you probably have a leak somewhere. If you have to fill it, basically you can see there's a cap up here, all right, like that. What you have to do is take these 4 screws out on top, pull that plate to the side, or what I did back in the day, I loosened 3 and I would slide the plate around, then I'd get the cap and I would fill it in, okay? Any questions on that? All right, okay. All right. So right here we have some battery stream lights. The question got brought up yesterday that the battery is starting to drain. So these are on a continuous charger. All right. So basically it's draining the battery as it charges. This truck doesn't have a shoreline connection on it, but it does have a accessory port where if you want to purchase one, you could put an accessory one. But as long as you start it up every day, that shouldn't matter. We never had it. I was on this truck for 3 years and the batteries never did bring these down because we were constantly running. All right. All this wiring right here, you'll see some loose wiring right here as well. This was for our pack tracker. We also had our thermal imaging cameras to remount it, but so these wires here should be a 12-volt connection. All right. When you look inside here, if you want to come around this side, Chief. All right. If you look inside here, one nice thing about this, if you need to check your oil or your transmission fluid, your dipsticks are right there, okay? And the yellow one, I think, is the oil, and it goes forward, and then the transmission is basically right below you, so it goes straight down, okay?
Can you fill from that, or do you have to jack the cab up from there?
You got to jack the cab up it's just a convenience dipstick location, okay? So when you fill it, I want to say the fill for the oil was on the other driver's side. Okay, on top of the engine head. It's noticeable. It says oil fill. It's a cap like this. Okay. Moving forward here. During the middle of summer, you're going to fill. This is kind of a heat port, so you'll hear some. That's normal. There's like this is where the heat will come out sometimes when it's running really hot. So this is kind of an exhaust port for the truck. So middle of winter, if your hands are cold, whatever, you can go right here and warm them up, okay? We talked about tire pressure back there. We figured it was 110. I think what Chiefs looked at. This also has a label right here for these bigger tires. It should be about 120 psi. Okay, but you do have a tire pressure gauge right here to show you. Right back here, if we have any electronics, so with inside the cab, you blow a fuse or a relay. A lot of this equipment in here is on relays, so like the air conditioning unit. I know some trucks I've been on where it would run and it kick off, and then the relay would cool down, and the air conditioner would kick back on again. So all that's all back here, and I'll let you get a gander what it looks like. Is this a wing nut, another screw nut? So there's some of these are fuses. Here's some of your relays. A word of caution, this is live. So anything that you see that is exposed or bare will shock you or give you a little, we'll let you know about it, okay?
Bite you.
Yes. And then on the back side of this, as you can tell, there's several pieces of paper in here, and it actually tells you what is what on it. So like the air conditioning unit, lights, okay? Because I can tell you I don't memorize this. I have to go to this sheet every time. And I think, Chief, you made copies of it, so there is a spare. Yep. So you have that as well on file. And this is where your load system manager for your lights are at as well. Windshield wiper fluid, if you need to add, it's right here, so that's kind of a nice thing. Other than that, that's pretty much this side of the truck. Any questions? Here we go. All right, so there's probably not much difference in this setup of this truck versus over there on your old truck here, but there are some safety features in it as well. Right here, there's some green lights. When we set up today, if you don't have all 4 green lights, it's telling you that something like when you short jack it, it's the left outrigger is not out of the way, or basically it's the jack is not down. So it will still operate, but you just have to override it. And as you can tell down here, there's an interlock override. So every time the alarm is going to keep on sounding until all 4 green lights are not lit up. Okay, so when you do go outside to override it, there's an interlock button right down here just by me pushing this here. Then there's also one up there, all right? So there's 2 people who have to do the interlocked override together to get the ladder out of the cradle. Otherwise, one person just can't do it, so it's a safety feature. Once it gets out the ladder, the annoying beeping sound will stop, and you can operate it as desire, okay? Some of the things about this, I know you can't see it, but if you look underneath here, like this on and off sign, okay, the bare wires are exposed here as well, or the wing nuts. So just be leery when you're putting stuff in here. If you bring something up here, you will short it or get a spark, because I experienced it. Okay, we used to have couplings and some gated wides down here, so I learned about that. Also for the cab, I'm gonna close this door real quick. All right, the cab tilts right here. All it is a quick switch. It raises it up. Once you get extended, you're seeing the other on the driver's side. You're here like a click. All that is the bar clicking down where you can't come back, obviously. And here's your release for that. If you ever lose electronics, obviously there's a handle right here to raise the cab, and it's on the front side of the bumper where you can actually manually pump it up. And if you ever get into that situation where you got to pump it up, it gets them in here on the sides as you start pumping and help lift it. It would speed up the process, because it's once you break it over about the 30 or 40 degree range, it gets a lot easier, but the first 2-3 feet, it's really tough. Experienced that as well. Like I said, once again, got another cord reel. Like I said, just be leery of that. Here's your cord reel rewind. Okay, And we're talking more on this, on the operation once we get outside, but basically when you set the truck up, I set this truck up almost daily where I got in the habit of it. As you can see, left jack, right jack. So obviously the left side is the driver's side, right jack is the officer's side. And as you notice on the label, it says in or out. So that means your outrigger's in, out, okay, or out, in. Okay, the next two levers are what they consider up and down. So basically you're setting your plates down on the ground. So when I always operated this, I grabbed the first two and I would pull them out together, and okay, that way they both came out at the same time. Same thing when you're setting up the jacks. The next two, pull them out together. If you get off on one side, next thing you know, your truck's doing, it's tilting, okay? Now understand we have level ground today, but sometimes when you have to set up on a slope, whether it's, I'm gonna call it the tilt from side to side, or basically like this, you know, you might have to just set, it's always better to set the outriggers that you want to raise up. So if you're in a slope like this with the cab down, get the outriggers set up first and where you like it, where you can pin it, and then basically get the next outriggers down and where you can hit them on the ground, okay? On side to side, as you can tell on this tilt meter right here, it's a gauge. You see everything in the red. Okay, so if you are on this tilt side, you want to probably put that side down first, okay, and then basically take this passenger or driver's side and raise it up that you balance it out. And that comes from my crane knowledge of setting booms. You always set the outrigger on the high side, and you did this later.
So is this the same way as this one was? Your side to side is more important than your front to back angles?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the tipping over factor. Right. Yeah, as long as you're within the green here, you're fine to operate. If you're without the green, then that's where you got to be concerned. That's where you could. That's where you could.
What about the front suspension, tires off the ground?
Well, we're to talk about that outside when we go out there. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and explain it. When I set it up, basically you'll see the tires. When the tires come off the ground and you take the suspension out of play, you want the suspension out of play. Otherwise, the truck is using the suspension to support the aerial apparatus. You don't want that. You want that to come up, and as you see, as it starts coming up, you see the tires toe in a little bit, and then you're off the ground. So you want them out, okay? And then, so basically the first two, the next two, I get these jacks, I will pin it, and the last thing I do is my rear jacks. But we definitely need to make sure that you're within the green. Now if you're off, I mean, it might not be quite on zero. If you're on the 2 degree mark there or 3, you're still fine. Okay. All right, just be leery of it. That's when you start getting it like this and you start swinging over this way. The engineers say it could tip over. Right. Okay, because they got too much weight outside on the opposite side. This is your high speed button, and I'll show you when we get outside there. So when this valve right here, if you want to come this side, Chief. Obviously this valve right here, when it's in this position here, it's only going to the hydraulics operation down here, okay, for these 5 levers, okay. When I pull it out, then basically that's a switch, transfer switch, and basically it's taking all the hydraulic pressure and putting it up to these controls up here, right. And also got in the habit, once I got my ladder set up, all right, I always took this door and I pushed it down, so that way I didn't want nobody coming by and messing with anything. All right, an upper power switch right here. This has to be turned on. You go up top. If you ever set this thing up on scene and you don't have power up there, or you don't have any controls that's not working, and everything's been extended out, you have 4 green lights, it's usually either this upper power has not been switched on, or you forgot to do this. Okay. Understand at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you had a rough day or a long day already, you know, I got in a hurry. I used to do it. I get everything set up, close the door, and I get up there and I wouldn't have power. I'm thinking, oh, I forgot the upper power switch, or I forgot to pull the valve out. Okay. The only way you get better at it is just by training with it and practicing with it. Question.
So either using it right there, working it, or in the bucket, that yellow has to be pulled out.
Correct.
Okay.
It will not operate, because right now when you pull this out, all right, what that does is basically it blocks this port here and no fluid's going to them. Now the port's going up through there and up into there.
That makes sense.
Okay,
Understood.
and there's a safety. Once you pull this out, there's a safety. This base layer here won't let you do it, so you have to push that back to get it back.
Understood.
Okay, good questions. All right.
Cut.
All right. So if you ever lose motor power, it's a great point. If you ever lose where the motor dies or it goes inoperable and you got to get the aerial down, you just flip this up and you basically flip that over to run hydraulics. Okay. So I think you got about 15 minutes before you really drain your batteries down, and it's going to move slowly, but at least you can get the whole purpose is that to get that thing back in its cradle where you can have a rig come pick it up and haul it off to the maintenance facility place.
Chief Jenkins made the comment, this isn't a climbing ladder, but with the rails up there, is that emergency egress only?
I would say yes, emergency egress. I've climbed the ladder when it's been extended fully out and we were raising the flag and someone pulled the wrong rope and the rope came out of the pulley.
Yeah.
And I had to carry the rope back up to there and put the pulley in. So when you're climbing this thing fully extended at a 60 or 70 degree angle, I'm telling you, when you're bouncing, when you guys climb smoothly, because you get the bounce and the only thing you have really is that little small handrail. And you got to keep yourself. The base is a lot wider when you get in the in the bucket and extend it. That last box is like this wide, so you're trying to climb that little.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, egress only,
Okay.
because you could fall off pretty easily, and it's not. If you're only not scared of heights, it's not that big a deal. All right, so we're going to talk about our pump panel here real quick. Obviously, I think you all are firemen. You know how to run open and closed your valves to get your piping. A couple of things I want to point out, because this is probably an auxiliary cable pump. Is that correct? So this one is electronic. How this works out, usually when you engage the pump, it's going to say, you got to press this mode button, and it's going to show PSI down here or RPM. Okay. When we're setting up the aerial, if you're going to use it for rescue, you don't have to engage the pump. But if you're going to use the ladder for rescue and pumping operations at the same time, then what you have to do is basically take this mode button, push it until you see RPM. I would increase your pressure to about 1300 to 1400 PSI. Obviously open the tank to fill and your circulation valve and your tank to pump valve right here as well. And then as you increase it, your RPM indicator's right down here, your voltage, and this is basically what the engine is doing at the time. Okay, so the reason you want to do that is that because once you engage the pump, your high idle function over here will not work. Okay, it will also not work in the bucket, so you won't have high idle. So the only way to get high idle at that point, if you engage a pump, is you're going to have to do it manually and keep your RPMs up at the pump. When you engage it about to 1400 RPMs, if you look down here on your pump data sheet, I want to say 1400 RPMs is about 150 PSI. So if you are pumping a hand line, it's about perfect for. But now, when you got fog nozzles on it now, but if you put a smooth bore, it's going to have to gate it down. Okay. Or you choose what option you want. You want to choose do I need to get up the right away? Maybe they don't need to. I'll pump it when I need to, and give them what RPMs I can, and they can still operate. So this is how the pump panel works. If you're just worried about pumping and not using the aerial, if you hit the mode button to PSI, so basically what happens then is that once you set your pressure, that's how the pressure governor works. All right, or basically how the relief valve works. If you open up another line and pull another line off and needs to increase the pressure, the pump will do it automatically for you. Okay, and that's probably what, on this new truck. Are you good with that? Okay. Now, on this waterway, so when you operate the ladder, anytime you get it up in the air and flow water, okay, before they move or you're done flowing water, anytime before you move the ladder or retract it, you want to open this waterway. This is your waterway drain. So right now, I always kept this open just for the fact that in case there was any residual water in there, especially this time of year, it can drain out. Or you get on the scene, it might freeze up in there. So that's what you're looking at right here. When you run the generator, obviously this is going to say 230 some volts, and then basically this line on each side If you have any lights or fans, it's going to show you the amperage right here. So like today, it's going to say probably 2 and 3, and that's basically to run the lights on that. So this is pump panel lights. This is turn your pump panel lights on if you need it. And then so for your waterway, okay, this is electronic valve. So over here on the right side, you're going to see, I think this is how you open it, or maybe this is how you close it. So this is close button. This is the open button. So when you get ready to open the waterway, you have to push it in and hold it in. You'll see this light go from red to yellow. You want to keep holding it in until it's on green. Green indicates that it's wide open. All right. This button right here, I'm going to say one of these, because I can't see and I don't have my glasses, I apologize. You push this one right here, it might be show how many gallons is being flowed at the moment. All right. Then you hit this button over here. I'm going to say it's the PSI button. Okay. And if you hit this PSI button again, actually one of them shows you the PSI, but also shows how much water you have flowed. So if it only says 6 on it, and then it goes to 7, and it goes to 8, well, that's your total GPMs, and actually that's saying you have flowed, you got to take that times 100. You've actually flowed 800 gallons per minute. So like yesterday, I think we were at 2,800. It said 28, so yeah, we had actually flowed 2,800 gallons of water out of it. And
does that reset every time you turn the truck off?
does it what?
Does it reset when you turn the truck off?
Yes, it's supposed to. It's supposed to, but it's technology and electronics. You know how that.
Keep it in mind when you do it. So kind of take a peek at it before you start flowing if you want to keep track of that.
Yes, if you want to keep that track of that. So, other than that, to close it, once again, you have to go over here and hit this button. You have to hold it in and keep on going. Now, if you happen to lose electronics, all right, there is a fail-safe to open up the waterway. It's on the other side, all right, and it says waterway drain, and basically it's on the opposite side over there, and it's a slow close valve. So basically it's got hydraulic fluid on it. So when you open it, it's going to take you probably 10 turns to open it. But you can open the waterway if necessary, okay? And before you start flowing, before you start open this here, all right, once they get in the bucket, start going up, make sure you push that in. Otherwise, when you open up the hydrant to the piston intake valve, your feet might get a little wet, okay? And your nose, it's obviously, okay? When I always operate this truck and I was going to use controls, I always pull this out, just for the fact that when I pull it out, I had a better aerial of what's going on, okay? I could see over there if I needed to, so I always pulled it out and operate it like that. Then I could always still step down. Just to close it up, you pull that to the side, you kind of got to lift up, and then always double check that it locks. Okay, I think
Did Columbia have a preset on this?
you can preset it. We never did a preset
Okay.
because we just didn't. But some trucks did. I didn't do it. Okay, but yeah, you can preset it where you come over here, hit the preset, and it's going to go up to whatever you want to flow at your pre-connects. So 140. Okay. So yeah, it is possible. And then like I said, when you're idling up, whatever, obviously if you need to idle down, you hit that and it goes right back to idle. And these little lights here should indicate when you're in RPM mode or pressure mode as well, along with the message center. Good question, but yeah, it's designed to do that, but we just never did. Some trucks did, but we didn't. So
when it's in RPM mode, is the pump boss kind of over the relief valve?
no, when it's in RPM mode, there is no. If someone open up another line, it's not going to increase. Only when it's in PSI mode, that it's going to maintain that pressure. In RPM mode, it's just going to say at those RPMs.
Yeah.
Or I'm running 1,400 RPMs. So if you open up, pull another line, and someone else pulls another line, then you're going to be right there,
So you need to be
splitting
cautious
that.
of
Yes. So the motor operation is all, that's where, when I say if you're going to be doing a rescue, I wouldn't worry about engaging the pump because you're more worried about getting the ladder set up to get high idle. Okay. Any other thing else?
Flying in cold weather.
The what?
Flying in cold weather and pumping.
So,
Random,
Yeah, so that's like I said, it's very important. Today we're going to have to flow water when you raise it up in the air. If it sits there a while, okay, not like today, but you know, like a couple weeks ago, that water does have a tendency to freeze in there. We actually had a truck that was flowing the aerial, and then they quit flowing the aerial, and it sat there for a while, and it got some ice chunks in it, or built the ice chunks up, and they start retracting it. They actually pulled it, and they got some water out. But what happened in you can't see it, this one here, but there's a stainless steel flexible tubing. When it got to that, it couldn't go out, or couldn't make the transition in the tube, and it blew it out.
Okay.
So it's a costly. Fire chief won't be happy if you blow that out. So just make sure you drain it, even if you're not flowing it in the cold weather, because you can get ice chunks in there and all that. So
Way to open up the relief valves or the drains from the nozzles up there.
So yeah, you could open up the nozzles. I would do it the smoothbore side, not the automatic nozzle, because there's a spring in there. But you could open up the smoothbore side and push it out, and that way if necessary. But just remember, when you're trying to compress water, it doesn't compress. It has to be. It's going to
Find a
push.
way.
Yes. So you could crack that yolk maybe if you had a lot of ice chunks in there. So.
Drain the waterway. If you got need water again, then recharge the waterway.
Yeah, and there's some drains, like as you see the yolk right now. If we flow water right now, that yolk, that yolk, that U-shaped thing will hold water. That's basically a waterway. So your seawater sometimes will come out these relief valves. I'll show you. I'll walk this way. So your seawater come out here. I think they have a certain setting that they close like at 100 psi. I'm not for sure. But basically, they're supposed to close when you're flowing water. When there's no pressure on it, you actually see water today come out of here. If you're really worried about it, this here is basically your cooling. So I'm going to open up now. We might even get some water out now. Maybe. But if you need to, this here would like take all the water out of here, and you still might see, you can see the piping coming right here. You might get it all out, but if this is full right here, it's just going to freeze. It's not going to do any damage, more than having it all the way full of water. But you could drain water out that way, because even right now, the waterway is not going to get all that water out. I think for the most part that's it. You do have on the opposite side, if you walk this way. If the bucket won't adjust, you do have your adjustments up there where you can manually adjust it using those up there. Okay, but as long as the bucket's automatically resetting itself, it's just like your other truck over there. It has the same things. Okay, if I open up one of them now, it's basically going to come back all the way. But that's your self-leveling adjustments. Your lights on top, those are telescoping. Basically, it's on the collar. You turn it counterclockwise, and you can push it up and lock it again the same way. So other than that, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. There's your valves right there. You do have a 2.5 inch, so you could make this a standpipe right there if you wanted to. All right, or go right off the smoothbore nozzle too. It's 2.5 inch, but nice feature about this is you have a 2.5 inch connection, and also an 1.5 inch if you need this to have an 1.5 inch line come off of it. And here's your other valve that will let water drain out as well. When I ran this truck, I always kept that one open. I didn't have it closed. Okay, because unless water gets sent that way, it's not going to flow water. But if you're ever going to, and I kept the fog nozzle, I had it locked down. So, because the gate at Y or the hydrant gate valve there, it takes a while to screw out sometimes. Adjustable tips. Any other questions on that?
I have a question about back at the pump when you're setting up. So
Okay.
you're setting up for rescue. That's your main objective when you pull up on scene. So you set all your outriggers. You're running your hydraulic pump, and you're flowing. Okay, we made the rescue, but now we want to transition to pumping water. Can you turn the pump after you're already, or can you activate?
You
the
can.
pump?
Yeah. So we'll see today. So when I was engineer of this truck, I had a systematic approach to it. So when I say systematic approach is that when I got set up, I knew I was going to aerial, I hit the PTO ladder jack, then I hit my mode generator, and then that's for rescue. Or most of generally, because this truck was basically our engine 2 was shut down, so we ran a lot of calls of structure fire. So basically, I'd go ahead and engage my pump, and then that's how I would increase my RPMs then. So if you got to the scene when you did rescue first, and now you're in pumping operations, all you have to do is just your normal transition of going back, putting it into mid-shift pump, and then hitting the drive button.
Okay.
Okay, so you could do it after the fact. Yeah, that's fine, but you got to bring it back down to low idle, and you have to make sure you have conversation or communication with whoever's in the bucket saying, "Do not use high idle. I'm engaging the pump." Or to alleviate any of that, you can go back to your panel and just take upper power
Turn it off.
and turn it off. That way they don't have the ability to do anything.
Okay.
And that reminded me of something else while we were just talking about it. Reason I always kept this other valve open here, okay, that way if this valve's open, there's no other piping going on. If I did forget to open the waterway, any water that was in it would actually go through there and get pumped out there. So that's another thing. Even with air in there, it would push the air out. You could hear air sometimes coming out. So that's why I kind of left that cracker halfway open. If there was water, when I compressed it back in, it would flow out. So, but with the Akron automatic nozzles, there's a spring in there, and it's sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. Good questions. And anything else? I know this is my third day. I'm forgetting stuff. Thank you for helping me out there. So I'm gonna turn the power on. The power is obviously over here. A couple things about your. I'm sure you do the same thing that we do now. Basically, we leave all emergency lights in the on position. That way, you can just turn your master on and turn it off. Okay. All right. So right now, we don't have this override button right here. The light should come on. All right. So the feature about this is, let's say you're going to a scene that maybe be unsecure or law enforcement, doesn't know where the suspect's at. So obviously at night when you open the doors, all these lights will come on. If you want to kind of be incognito when you open the door, basically you can close that and you won't have lights. So that's what that's for. Okay. Sometimes you don't want to use the white lights because it might be too blinding. On the left side of towards the front, there's your on and off switch for this. Obviously my door's open now, so this one stays on, but like for the red one, I can turn this one on up here. They all should be the same on the back as well. I think it's on the front side towards the right. So you can turn them on and off. Or like I said, if you want to turn them all the way off, you hit that button. So we can leave this in the on position. All right, and we'll turn that one on, off. All right. So when you get ready to set your ladder up and all that, as you can tell, this over here is the sign brake, so that's usually for the officer. Override just talked about. You got your right floodlight over there, which is for that side. Your left floodlight, and then you got your spotlights. And the next two are your PTO, and it says PTO and ladder jack. You can obviously see it pretty clearly there. So when you get ready to set up, when I talked about my systematic approach, this is what I would used to do. I'd hit that button, I'd come over here and hit the generator button. All right, now my generator's on. If I was going to do pumping operations, then I did this here. And then obviously put it in drive, okay? So the mode is your generator button, okay? And obviously you'll see the day, but when I hit this button here, the truck's running. You'll see up here, it will say PTO, and then up here on this right side, or left side I should say, it's going to say your second PTO. Your second PTO is your generator, okay? That's why it's a systematic approach. If you just go bam, 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 or however you want to do it, just make sure you keep it the same way. That way at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know what you're doing. Like I said, the first panel of switches is all lighting. This is the second panel of basically your exterior lights and your operations. Okay. Right here, the question got brought up yesterday. There's a Jake brake, all right, that you're on and off. And obviously they said, what's this low, medium, high? This is a Caterpillar. I think it's a C12, so it has 6 cylinders, big bore cylinders. When you put it in the low position, only 2 of them are being basically cut off from the air supply to get the cackle. All right. When you put in the medium, 4 of the 6 are being cut off. All right, and the last 6 is basically all of them. When I ran this truck, I think it weighs 68 or 72,000 pounds. All right, I always kept the Jake brake on, even in the winter, because it really is, to break that rear end is hard to do. Now, obviously in snow, obviously you have icy conditions, it might break free as well. But that's where you can maybe do, like in icy conditions, you could just do a low. Okay, it would help retard the engine down enough where you can actually don't wear your brakes out, because it's a lot of starting and stopping will wear the brakes out pretty quick on this truck. It's a lot of weight to get started and stop. So obviously the tire change, you just push that up. The last thing I want to talk about is this air horn button. All right, so the air horn button, when it's in this position, basically if I push down on here, it's going to sound the air horns. Even though we have switches down, the officer has switches at his feet, the siren and air horn. I got them both right here. All right, I could also drive like this and this instead of. The officer always ran the siren, then I ran the air horn, okay? Because I'm looking at my air pressure gauge. So I could do that. If I didn't want to do that, if I just want to have the regular horn, I put it to electric horn, and basically now I have the regular air horn. Okay, so that's what this switch here is for. Other than that, I think everything is pretty much self-explanatory. Your differential lock is down here. Wipers, your dimmer switch, your headlights. The one last thing I want to talk about before we go out, or maybe 2 more things. When you turn the battery on, all right, they tell you your gauges should cycle, and as you watch the gauges cycle here, when I initially turns it on, it's doing a system check. They're going to go all the way over. They're going to come back. All right. So once they come back like this, then it's basically, then I was ready to start it. But that kind of let them cycle, because that's even the motor, it's fuel injected. So sometimes just by cycling it, it helps the injectors and all that to realize that, hey, we're getting ready to start. Okay. So maybe flip this on while you're putting your bunker gear on. Okay, and then basically, the time you get your gear on, it's ready to start. And what was the question?
Right, and it also helps with relays.
Yeah, it helps with the relays too. Yep. Okay. Down below on the panel, there's an air outlet as well. All right, so here's your remote control. It's on basically the driver's side. It's below the SCBA if you ever want to use it. How you turn this on is by hitting the auxiliary button. Hold the auxiliary button in. All right, once it goes in, it's going to do a system check, and you know you have power, and you have power there. Obviously, I don't have the remote, the power truck turned on, but basically you have open or close or preset down here, so I don't think that function works. I think the only functions you have really that works are these up here. So this is right, left, up, down, go from a fog or to a stream. The oscillate function is where if you set it like that, you have to look at the owner's manual, but if I remember correctly, you hit this, hold this, and you have to go push this button, and then you would go to the hit that again, go to the right, and hit that. So basically what happens when it oscillates, the nozzle automatically is programmed to go back and forth. Okay. To turn it off, I think you want to hold this auxiliary button again, maybe, for a couple seconds here. Otherwise, if you don't, yep, it went off. Otherwise, this thing will time out. Okay, if you don't use the controls, it will time out. There's one in the bucket. It's permanently mounted, wired. Okay, but this is basically you can take this and put it in your bunker gear and walk around. Question was asked yesterday: how far away can you get from the bucket? I don't know that. That's something you have to look up. I apologize, but I'm gonna say at least 200 feet or 150 feet if I had to guess. It still operate. So. I'm sure the technology on this remote is better than the one I had. Okay. All right, so when you're setting this truck up, the main thing, when you put those tires up and down, this truck might walk on you, as in when you set the front side up, it's going to teeter-totter. So after multiple setups, these things could move on you. So I always got in the habit of I try to keep these about 2 inches away. They're big wheel chocks. Obviously, if the truck would start walking away from you, it's going to hit one, okay? but you don't want to put it right against the tire, because if you put this one especially against the tire, after I set it up the first time, it's going to come down on that wheel chock. Alright, so always kind of keep these about 2 inches away on both sides. These wheel chocks obviously come off the rear of the truck. If you're going to put them on the rear of the truck, I strongly recommend you put them on the front axle, not the rear, because when the rear comes the second axle, or I call it the tag axle, as you can tell, that's where my jack's at. So, but due to their size and where that other jack's at, if you don't set it up, you could crunch one. So, I always would do the front axle or right here. Okay, at this point, I'm ready to set the truck up. Some of the hand signals we use at Columbia Fire Department, when I want the outriggers to go out, I'd go like this. That means I'm coming out with the outriggers. When I was ready to go down with my outrigger plate, I put my hand out there and I would go like this. So that would mean I'm coming down. So communication is always good through here. All right. You can always kind of peek right through here as well if you couldn't see somebody or step up. If you come over here, you see a mirror in the back plate. If you kind of go this way, you can kind of see where some guy would be at or gal on that side. You can actually see them. All right. If you can't get in contact or they don't come, it's generally a good idea just to walk around there. Okay. Now, if you're setting this up by yourself, a lot of times that might be happening as well. So that's where I go around there and then come back and then go out with my outriggers. So I got plenty of great help today. So you want to go on that side, sir? Huh?
Didn't mention putting in the pin.
Oh.
The hand side of the pin.
All right. So yes. So I got reminded.
I'll go tell him. What is it?
Well, when you put the pin in, you have to pin it. You got to pin it like this, and you'll see it as we go through here. All right. I got my help on that side. As I told you all this week, I always had a systematic approach. That way I wouldn't forget anything. I'm engaging my PTO jack. I'm coming over here to my motor and generator, pushing that on. I'm getting the visual as well. I got PTO engaged. Second PTO is engaged. And actually, if I hear and look and listen, I can hear it go on. So at this point, I'm coming back. Give him the signal. Outriggers out. Remember, I grabbed the first two. I get them going. I hit high idle. I let off high idle. I go back. Set my plate. When you set your plate, make sure you have the plate centered. He gave me the signal. Grab the next two right here. I grab the next two. Keep holding. I rest my front. I see it go like that. I'm off the ground. I'm good. Signal to pin it. I grab the pin. And I got it pinned. At this point, I'm ready to do my rear jacks. Just be aware, this pin here, this is a safety pin. Okay. If I blow a line or this cylinder blows a line, instead of it going straight to the ground, it's this slide tube going to slide up here and hit this here, so it's not going to go to the ground.
That pin doesn't have to be right on top of that rod?
I can't because that.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
close to one?
Yeah. If you can't hit the.
Bet it on the pin.
Huh?
You don't need to bet it on the pin.
Well, I can't. I would want to bet it closest to the pin, but if I can't get this hole, then I gotta go to the next hole.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying, you don't want to lower it onto the pin.
No.
Okay.
You don't want to lower the pin. Okay? This is just a safety in case your hydraulic ram blows your fluid, and instead of going straight to the ground with you up in the air,
Yeah.
it's going to sink down so this here catches.
Okay.
At that point, you're out of service anyway.
Yeah.
So, but no. I would not do that.
Okay.
Okay. Last thing I got to do is my rear jacks. Once again, I'm going to use my high idle. My watch back there. At this point, I'm setting it up. Obviously, my front axle came off the ground a little bit. I'm going to go up just a little bit more. so that rear axle is a little bit off the ground. So that's what I want. I'm going to look at my gauge right here, make sure I'm level. If I wasn't level, that's where I'd actually adjust it before. I'll probably adjust before I got to this position. Okay. If you don't have it adjusted, you have the rear jacks already on the ground. You have to basically set up your H outrigger on the side before you set those there up. Okay. At this point, last thing I need to do is go to the upper power switch. Get this upper power up there. I pull my transfer fluid valve lever down. I got 4 green lights. At this point, I'm ready to climb to the aerial pedestal and start operating. Go. Put it back in. All right. So now we have the aerial back down in the cradle, on the saddle. All right. I'm going to switch my upper power. I'm going to transfer my fluid valve. At this point, I have to push this in and go up. If for some reason this here is like this and you can't go up, it's because the interlock system won't let you do it. Okay, this will be locked. What you have to do at that point is to pull the pin. When I always got ready to set the lock or take all my outriggers up, I always wanted to pull the pin because if I went in here by accident and hit both of these because I was not thinking about it, I would have raised my rear jacks would come up, but then also that jack would come up and hit that pin. You obviously see the truck do this. You don't want to do that. So first thing you want to do is pull the pin. Then if I need to, this here lever should push over and I can go up. I'm going to do my rear jacks first. I'm going to go up slowly. I don't want to take this valve and just dump it. I want to ease it because I'm putting all that weight back in that airbag system and that suspension. So once I get there, I can use high idle. Alright. Now I'm going to make my communication. I got the goes. And now we're going to go with this. Once again, these 2 levers. Slow. Pick up my plate. Alright, got the signal to go outriggers in. High idle. Drop the high idle. At this point I'm done setting it up. So that's the proper operation of setup and takedown. Okay, so now we're just going to get a quick demo on how to short jack it. Alright, so we're going to short jack it on this side. So basically I'm going to bring this outrigger up about 1 foot, 2 foot out. The other side's going to go out, and actually when I get set up I'll have only 3 green lights down here. When you set this up and you short jack this because we have a car here or a building or something, okay? We can't work off this side with the aerial, so I always would use the center line of the apparatus. I'll never bring my aerial back over that. You could probably go back just a little farther, maybe by the hose on the end of the corner of the truck. That would be about it, okay? And you can feel the stability of the truck as well when you start swinging it back. So we're going to work on the officer side, so I'm going to make sure you're ready to go out. It gives me the signal. Came out about 3 foot, 2 foot. I come back in just a little. Grabbing the next 2 jacks. I'm starting to hit. Front tires off the ground. I'm going to pin it. And obviously when we pin it, it's still going to echo and warn me with that tone saying, hey, you are not set up correctly. It's designed to do that, even though I pinned both sides. I'm going to set my rear jacks. All right. At this point, we got to interlock this override to get the aerial out. So you got it. I'm good. He's going to raise it. Once we get the micro switch off the saddle, so once he gets out, you can let go and you can still operate the ladder. That micro switch there, once you get it off, it's ready to work. Now to bed it, we got to do the same thing. So let's go ahead and bed it. As you can tell, he's pushing the button up there. I'm not pushing the button down here. And it stopped. The aerial is still floating yet. So to get it all the way down, I still have to hold the interlock down. He has to hold it down. And you can see the aerial going down now. All right. Go ahead. At this point, if I try to take this fluid, this lever is locked. I can't go back up. I'm going to have him pull the pin on that. He pulled the pin. I pull my pin. Now I can put the fluid on. If I don't pull the pins, it's going to stay locked. So you got to pull both sides of the pin. Switch them up to power back, reverse order. Doing my rear jacks now. I'm doing my upper jacks. This time I'm putting my rear jacks in. Alright, so once I got everything bedded, everybody look back here in the corner. Okay, what we got vehicles here. If I want to double check to make sure everything's been pressurized and maxed out, all I have to do is look back here, right here. I can hear it locked out. And also can hear it and I can get a visual if I need it. Okay? At this point, I know everything has been sucked up tight, pulled in tight. Okay? Because the pressure has been bottomed out.